1 Corinthians 15. In that chapter of the Bible, Paul goes through the resurrection. What is it? Why is it that we believe in it? Why is it so important that Jesus was resurrected from the dead and that you and I believe in the resurrection from the dead? 1 Corinthians, I think, is such a key book for the season that we're in as a church, especially the Western church and especially the American church. I'd encourage you to look through it and think through it and study it, because there's some things that you'll learn. But 1 Corinthians 15, it touches on something that has kind of become popular. There's been this idea that we need to make all of our faith about what's happening right now and not let it be about what's happening in the future or what's going to come in the afterlife. And I get the concept, because if you have a thought process, if you have a mental assent to some certain concepts about the future, but it doesn't actually change your heart, then you're going to just go off and you're going to live as if that wasn't true, and you're going to do your own thing, and it's not going to affect your reality today. Now, the problem is not the belief in something happening in the future. The problem is that they don't really believe it. If you believed in eternity, you would do a lot more today, because in eternity, there is a throne of judgment. And not just for the unjust, but for the just and the unjust. And the unjust, that throne is a terrible throne, but the great white throne of judgment for the just, that is a whole different matter. It says that everything that we've done in the body will come before that throne, that our works will be judged, and we'll find out. Some of it's going to be wood, hay, and stubble, and it's going to be burnt up, and some of it will be found to be precious stones. And we will be given rewards, which will be the authority that we have in eternity based on what we did in the body. So we have to, if we have a real understanding of what's happening in eternity, we will live differently. And so you can't say that if we just make our faith about what's going to happen then, that we won't be effective today. That's just bad theology. That's not that the theology is wrong. It's just incomplete. It's not being lived out. But we must have an expectation for what happens then. Because Paul says this: if our faith is only about what's happening in this life, if our faith isn't anchored on the resurrection, if it's not anchored on heaven, if it's not anchored on what's to come, then we're more to be pitied than the whole rest of the world. Our faith, it doesn't make any sense. It's not helpful. See, it's a both and. It's a both and. We have to have a good understanding of what's coming after. We have to have a high theology of heaven. In John 14, Jesus says that I'm going to prepare a place for you. And if I go to prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you so that where I am, you can be also. We have to have a high expectation for that. And in the midst of that, we have to be very practical about how we live here. Living in the authority that we have, not thinking that we already have everything that we will have. The Bible's very clear. There are things that are reserved for another season, but there's a lot more available now than many people dare to wish. So how do we keep both? 1 Corinthians 15, an interesting chapter. Read it, think about it, and think about the implication that if it is only for this life that we have believed, we are more to be pitied than all men. Now there's heaven. Heaven is coming. And there we will have the full fulfillment of everything that our hearts and our spirits have longed for. That's worth living for. Easy to die for something, but will you live for it?